Welcome back to Hello Nigeria, and it's time for a top story. We have our special guest in the studio, and we'll be looking at the state of the nation in general, and of course, everything that is happening with Nigeria, concerning Nigeria. We have two gentlemen in the studio to discuss this with us. I have Mr. Celeb Ogenetega. He's a legal practitioner and is here with us. And of course, I have the Senior Vice President at the Center for Value and Leadership, Mr. Rasheed. Adegbenro. You're welcome to Hello Nigeria.
It's a pleasure joining you.
And how are you enjoying the raining season?
Beautiful.
Hope you're not negatively affected.
No.
Okay, let's get straight to the business of the day. The president, I'd like to start with Celeb. The president has been absent, and it also has to do with leadership for quite some time. How long are we going to, what's the constitutional recommendation? How long can the president be absent for, and when would they put in legal instruments to fill this vacuum, or is there no vacuum, as some people have suggested?
Well, it's interesting that the National Assembly and the executive have decided to politicize the president's absence. Typically, the process to either confirm the status of his health should have started by now, considering that this is the second bout of absence that we're having. But I think we're threading a very thin rope, which is why the steps that are being taken and the approaches that are being used.
Just hold your thoughts there. I'll get back to you. And we'll go on a quick break now. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation. Do stay with us. You're welcome back to Hello Nigeria, and like I said earlier, we're discussing the state of the nation. Apologies for that abrupt interruption. We had to attend to some technical issues. Now, Celeb, back to you. Before we went on that break, we were looking at the constitutional window. What's the situation with the absentee president?
Yeah, like I was saying, what we have is a political approach that has been adopted to deal with this situation. Truly, that process should have started by now and trying to confirm to Nigerians the state of the president's health. I know that there are people who had even made requests to know how much was even being spent on the president's health, pursuant to the Freedom of Information Act, but nothing has been provided on that. And that's simply because of the tension between the executive and the legislative arm of government. The people who are in the legislative arm are seen to be overtly ambitious. And if that process should start, people would not see the constitutional aspect of the process. They would see the political aspect of it. And it's like gunpowder right now. So that's why everybody's trying to play this, play safe with the process, not to be seen as an enemy of Buhari and by extension an enemy of Nigeria.
But what is the right thing to do? The
right thing to do typically would have been if the president has been ill for such a long period of time, you confirm whether or not he has the capacity to continue performing his functions under the Constitution. If he doesn't have that capacity, then you invoke the provisions of the Constitution that require him to hand over to the Vice President. Now, nobody, and which is why you've seen that he was flown back into Nigeria. Some group of people are trying to give us the impression that the President has the capacity to carry on his functions, which is not the case. We haven't heard from the President. We haven't seen the President. The purported speech during the Ramadan period, nobody can confirm that it was indeed made at that time.
And Hausa is not a national language.
I mean, without even going into that, how do we verify that it was not a recording? That it was not something that was premeditated prior to his being flown out of the country?
Let me talk to Mr. Adegbenro. President Buhari, to quote him verbatim, sometimes in 2011, I'm not sure, during the presidency of late Umaru Yar'Adua, he did say that the National Assembly should set in the motion to impeach him, that has been away for too long due to his health reasons. And I mean, just as fate will have it, we happen to be in about the same situation. How much of leadership does that show? And do you think the president is actually in control of things that are happening around him?
Well, I cannot really remember verbatim what the current president said prior to his election during the Yaradua era. But what is playing out of the political space today is symptoms of a very strong, potent underlying disease, and that is leadership failure. If the leadership failure is addressed, many of the issues playing out now will settle. If you are in office as a leader, there are rules that will govern your administration. You are there not because of yourself, but you are there because of your
To serve.
penchant for service to the people, what we call people, you are people-centric, you are other-centric. It's not all about you or your family, but about the larger society. If that is the basis for coming for election, then it shouldn't be difficult to quit if you are challenged. But what we have now clearly shows that there are wrong conclusions that draw people into leadership.
So permit me to interrupt you here. When you talk to people generally and ask them, why is Nigeria in this situation? They'll say, oh, it's leadership problem. It's always easy to put the blame at the doorstep of leaders, political leaders since independence. Oh, it's leadership. The followers are so great. And there's a school of thought that says the people deserve the type of followers because these leaders are from within Nigerian society. They attended Nigerian institutions. They live here. So
Correct.
are leaders born or made?
You are not far from the truth. That's why we have leadership failure. There's also citizen failure. Because we let these people into office. Every 4 years they come around begging for votes, carousing us, romancing with us. But the moment they get the ticket, they become vampires. And we are unable to do anything about it.
No access.
So on our side, as electorate, we have a strong responsibility to ensure that the right things get done. Are not only done, but to be seen to be done. Part of what has escaped the Nigerian political environment is the public institutions. Prior to the entry of the military, we seem to have received from the colonial masters fairly good institutions, security, governance, and so on. The judiciary was strong. The legislature had its own clear-cut roles. But when the military came and constitution was suspended, in the period of the military rule, what they first did was to demolish all institutions. So today, people come into power and operate purely based on assumptions. There are no clear rules. So if people get to office, they don't want to leave, the rules are there on how to engage.
Now, thank God we have a lawyer here. We've had this uninterrupted democratic experience since 1999. I mean, if you were a child, you would be 19... 17 years old. I mean, that's a young adult. Why don't we seem to be getting it right? If you play back a tape from 98, the same electoral promises, light roads, we don't seem to move beyond that when other countries are looking at sending manned missions to space and different parts of the world. Why are we still in this conundrum? He mentioned something about the apathy of the people, the citizens. We don't seem to know our rights. Why do we tolerate, or why do we give these people such a free pass?
I think it goes back to the level of psychological abuse that we have suffered over the period of time under military rule. And you see that, like he rightly said, there's a long period where everything centered around one person, even if there were institutions. So people were used to coming into office, particularly offices that should have been elective offices, but coming in as administrators and, centralizing all the powers and institutions in one person. That same mentality, unfortunately, has now evolved into democracy.
We've not been able to shed
We
the
haven't been able
hangover
to, yes, we haven't been able to go back to the system of institutions where various institutions are able to carry on the functions that they've been created to carry on. You cannot also forget like he mentioned as well, the citizens. We have a serious serious problem. The average Nigerian person is basically interested in having a roof over their head, money in their bank accounts and in their pockets, 30 billion or whatever amount, higher or less. But I would not entirely blame that mindset because it also comes from the leaders who have abused them for so long.
Would you say it's a situation of hopelessness? Or they don't have enough resources to even protest? Look, in Romania...
It's laziness, political laziness.
Let's look at this example. The National Assembly is toying with a bill that a lot of people have termed trying to legalize corruption or rubber stamp corruption by the amnesty for looters bill that would grant them amnesty. The Romanian parliament just flirted with that idea, and you should have seen the streets. In the height of winter, the streets of Bucharest were blocked. And even after the National Assembly said, look, we're not, okay, hands down, we're not doing this anymore, they called for the resignation of the person that sponsored that bill. Same situation in Nigeria, and nobody seems to care. Is it that we're so poor we can't organize ourselves?
I don't think we can run away from the fact that as citizens we have a right, but we have refused to enforce our rights. And like you said, it could be out of laziness, parochial thinking, and so on and so forth. The moment we are able to rise to the occasion to demand what is right, then the leadership question will be properly addressed. The elected officers will sit up. If things are going bad in the National Assembly and you call out Nigerians tomorrow, in Lagos alone, if you can pull out 5 million Lagosians out tomorrow, things will change in Abuja. Now, but the challenge we have is if you do it, majority will stay at home.
Kelly, you wanted to
because you see, let's not forget so quickly. A lot of the people who have the capacity, unfortunately, to make this sort of movement happen were involved in bringing this government into office. So a lot of people right now are suffering from political guilt. And they're struggling with, how do I go out and become the face of opposition to this government when I was the one responsible?
There's a conflict of interest.
There's a serious, and people are not speaking to that. There's a severe conflict of interest in this matter. People who should be speaking out are not speaking out. People who, and another thing I realize as well, is this government is not as tolerant as the previous government of opposition. In the past, would have occupied Ojota and all sorts of places. But now, if you try it, you probably will be chased with soldiers and all sorts of things. So people are now reconsidering, especially after occupying Nigeria.
It's not progressive.
It's not progressive. That's the problem. That's why we spoke about political laziness.
Yeah, but the opposition should be doing it.
The opposition is more concerned about running away from trials, about covering their loot. You see, the country is in disarray. And unfortunately, the people who should step out to put us together are conflicted.
Now, let's look at, there's a new buzzword, restructuring, 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 and there's agitation. Nigerians, our leaders have this herd mentality, this ostrich mentality. We bury our heads in the sand and hope for the problems to go away. It happened after the death of Mohammed Yusuf, Boko Haram. We have a situation where the court has granted, they've given orders that the Shia man, El-Zakzaki, should be released. Nnamdi Kanu has been released. He's violated his bail conditions numerous times. And you might think it's a joke, but he has quite a number of following. How do we address everybody's, what kind of leadership style do you use to address everybody's agitation?
Well, I take Nigeria to be a big...
Or is it restructuring that is the ultimate...
Yes. The mere fact that the word restructuring has entered into our lexicon is an indication that there's a challenge somewhere, and it needs to be addressed. I would take Nigeria as a big corporate organization because government is the single largest employer of labor, single largest earner, and single largest spender. So government today should be managed or operated as big enterprise. The word restructuring is more popular within the corporate world. Once your business results go south, you restructure your enterprise completely in order to bring it back to life. So restructuring really is not negative. It does not mean by restructuring you're going to break Nigeria into pieces or destroy Nigeria. It's to make Nigeria work better. If you see from that mindset, then the stress we have all over the place that restructuring may dismember Nigeria may not really hold waters. It's clear that things are not right. That's why we are in this ditch. And if that is right, and we have the right leadership, the right focus put in place, then things that are wrong should be identified and separated from the
Okay,
pack.
I'm happy you mentioned the right leadership. Just before we wrap things up, Caleb, right leadership, is it who's going to, the people that can make these things happen? Then the National Assembly, it's not like we're just going to make them disappear and then order a new set of leaders that will do this restructuring. These people that are going to restructure, let's say, are still this crop of leaders. So it's like putting old wine in a new bottle. It's not going to change. Or do you agree that they could still do something about it?
I don't think the current government, executive or leadership, have anything to offer Nigerians. Recently, one of my friends said, in expressing his dissatisfaction, says any constituency that returns its senator or lawmaker to the National Assembly does not deserve to complain about bad leadership, because the entire National Assembly is a complete embarrassment to Nigeria. They have failed every one of us. They have disappointed us from their. There's so much.
From the inception.
So where it comes back to us as the citizens, you know, we need to realize that we hold the aces in our hands, and somehow we need to come up with people who have access to technology, who can make things happen. There's a new way we need to work out politics, especially for financing candidates. If we can get financing candidates right, and the platform, there was a time there was something coming together, and unfortunately, our self-interest doesn't allow us to see things to the end. But if we can work out the funding right and platforms right, then we can send the right set of people to the National Assembly. It may not, like he said, it's not necessarily restructuring for a negative purpose. It's just to make things function better, and that is what the Easterners are clamoring for. That's what the Niger Delta militants were clamoring for, but they use violence. The good thing about the Easterners, they're not using violence. They're speaking to it, but they're still talking. We don't need to get to a point where we then degenerate into violence. Let us sit at a table. The right to remain as Nigeria belongs to every one of us. It can only be restructured if we all sit together, like it was done in the 2014 confab. And I think that report needs to be revisited somehow and implemented.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. We've had Mr. Caleb Ogenetega and Mr. Rasheed Adegbenro, Senior Vice President at the Center for Value and Leadership. And we've been discussing the state of the nation and other matters. We'll go on a quick break now. When we come back, it'll be time for Sports with Nnamdi Akuba. Do stay with us. Hello Nigeria continues shortly.
To enjoy more of these our Ogbonge videos when you just watch, press this button to subscribe on top of our YouTube page. You go love am.